It's hitting. It's not started recording just yet.
Okay.
Now it's recording.
Excellent. So welcome everyone. My name is Maureen Meredith. I work for the city's Housing and Planning Department. I do all the plan amendment cases in the city of Austin. This plan amendment community meeting is NPA 2021-0018.01. If you haven't done so already, please let us know who is here by using the chat box. If you're associated with an organization, please provide that as well. Please mute your microphone if you are joining by phone, and please turn off your video if you are participating online to save bandwidth. How to participate today. The speech bubble in the menu bar at the bottom of your screen, or it could be the top, will open the chat box where you can type in questions at any time. Please limit general comments until the end of the Q&A session. We ask people to do that so we can make sure all the questions get asked and they don't get lost in general comments. After presentations, you can click on the raise hand icon to be called on to speak. So as I said, my name is Maureen Meredith. I am the Plan Amendment Case Manager, and Mark Walters is here if he wants to introduce himself, and then we'll have the applicant and the agent introduce themselves as well.
Yeah. Good evening. I'm Mark Walters, the Principal Planner with the Housing and Planning Department, and I'll be moderating tonight's questions.
Rodney, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. My name is Rodney Bennett. I'm representing the owners tonight in the request for the zoning change in the NPA amendment.
Anybody else like to introduce associated with the application? Okay, we will move on. So here is my contact information, and Mark Graham is the zoning case manager, and here is his contact information. We can go back to this at the end of the Q&A if people need to write this down. The agenda tonight, we'll go over the case information, guidelines for group discussion, how to participate in the process, why is there a plan amendment application, what is a future land use map. After my presentation, the applicant will give his presentation. I don't think he has a PowerPoint, but he will be available to provide more detail about the plan amendment and zoning request. And then we will open the floor to questions and answers. So here's the case information. As you know, it's in the Brentwood Highland Combined Planning Area. Actually, it's in the Brentwood area, not the Highland. The property address is 5610 Roosevelt Avenue. The case number is NPA 2021-0018.01. This is the project name, McCarley's .32. The request is to change the future land use map from single family to multifamily. The associated zoning case number is C14 2021-0018. The request is to change the zoning from SF3 single family residence district 3 neighborhood plan to multifamily 3 for multifamily apartments. And here's the property owner is McCarley's LLC, David McCarley, and Rodney Bennett is the agent, and he introduced himself. Guidelines for a group discussion. Due to the need for social distancing, in-person questions and comments have been moved to this online format. Everyone will be allowed to speak. We ask that you listen respectfully and actively, to criticize ideas, not individuals, commit to learning, not debating, avoid blame, speculation, and inflammatory language, avoid assumptions about others, especially based on their perceived social group, and staff reserves the right to delete offensive language and remove offenders from the meeting. We have these guidelines, but we have had no problems with our meetings so far. Everyone has been very respectful. Some more guidelines. Please feel free to type your questions into the chat at any time during the meeting. Please postpone general comments during the Q&A session. After staff and applicant presentations, if you would like to speak, please raise your hand by clicking the hand symbol on the menu bar. Telephone participants will be able to speak during the Q&A session of the meeting. Attendees will be muted upon arrival and through the staff and applicant presentations. Then staff will open the floor to questions and answers in the chat or by attendees raising their hand to speak. Similar questions may be grouped and answered together. Please mute your microphone when you are not speaking for the sake of sound quality and clarity of conversation. If you are having connection issues, please turn off your video until called upon to ask your question. If you have questions after this meeting, they will be answered and made available by request within 5 business days to the website speakupaustin.org/NPA. As you know, earlier, this meeting is being recorded and we will have the recorded meeting posted to the website. You can email or call me or Mark Graham with any questions or comments that you have. Written comments we receive will be added to the staff case reports. If you live within 500 feet of the property, you will get a notice in the mail when the Planning Commission and City Council hearings are scheduled. And those hearing notice will have instructions on how to participate in the public hearings. So why is there a neighborhood plan amendment? Neighborhood plans are adopted by City Council as amendments to the Imagine Austin Comprehensive Plan. City Charter requires zoning changes to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. And most neighborhood plan amendments are to the future land use map, and most have an associated zoning application. So this map shows in blue areas that have City Council approved neighborhood plans, most of which have a future land use map that looks like this. This is Brentwood's future land use map, and the colors represent broad land uses. For example, this property is zoned SF3 and the existing future land use designation is single family, which is yellow. The proposed zoning of MF3 would have a land use designation of multifamily, which is the orange color. This map shows a chart that shows the typical zoning districts you would find in the various land use categories that can be found on a future land use map. This is just an aerial photo from the city's property profile. You can see it has a single family home on it. To the north is a vacant lot. You can see some apartments and homes. To the west, to the south is an apartment complex. And to the east, it looks like some apartments also. This is a Google map that shows some surrounding uses to the property. Here's a picture of the property with the single family home. You can see the vacant lot to the north. This is across the street to the west. This is a view south on Rosewood and a view north. This is a future land use map that shows the land use on the property is yellow, which is single family. To the north is multifamily. To the west, multifamily. South and east is also multifamily land use. Here's the zoning map. Property zoned SF3 NP. You have MF3 NP to the north. To the west, MF3 NP, SF3. To the south, also MF3. This is the map from the city's growth concept map that also has bus routes overlaid. Actually, it looks like this does not have the bus routes. I can grab that while Rodney is speaking, and you can see that as well. But you can see the property in relation to the activity centers and corridors. You see North Lamar is an activity corridor. Next, we will go to Rodney. So Rodney, if you want to just provide more detail if you'd like from my presentation, then we'll just go into Q&A.
Thank you, Maureen. Once again, I'm Rodney Bennett. I'm here tonight to help answer any questions I can on this proposed zoning change and FLUM amendment. Some questions that I had for the owner and that he's answered is how many units he's expecting to get out of this. And we don't think that we can get more than 12 units. Will these be apartments or will they be condos? The answer is they will be condos. He's the way the city's does their development reviews is there's a hierarchy: zoning, subdivision, site plan, building permits. So he hasn't done any site plan legwork per se. He just has a vision in his head at this time. With that said, he is proposing to have the pond towards the rear of the lot. He is proposing one building with parking under the building at grade level, and then 2 floors of living units above that. The amount of bedrooms will be between 2 and 4. And he's not asking for any smart housing on this project. Let me see what else we have. And that's pretty much about it in a nutshell. We feel that this is compatible with the with Roosevelt because it is a hodgepodge of multifamily and SF3 zoning. Furthermore, there is a proposed development to the north of us, which will be a multifamily use as well. So if that was to continue, this would just be a small house surrounded by apartment complex or condo uses. And I'll be available if y'all have any questions. Thank you, Maureen.
This is Mark Walters. If anyone has any questions, raise your hand and I will get to your order in the order that I see them raised. Let's see. Okay, Bill Speisman has his hand. Would you unmute and ask your question, Bill?
Hi, I'm Bill Speisman, and the question that I have is, the lot seems, I mean, there's a lot of room on that lot, but without rezoning it, you could put 4 units there by simply subdividing and putting a house and an ADU on each property. I'm wondering why you are opting to try to squeeze in a whole lot of so many more units there, which it's at the end of a street, and granted there's some apartment buildings, but one of them to the south, that apartment building is owned by a nonprofit, and so it's got a specific use for that property. And then the other apartment building shown here has parking on either side of the building. So some of the parking is out there on Grover and with a few spots on Roosevelt. So it's putting on what is kind of a sleepy, lazy road that has some apartment buildings, but a lot of the you can see on the map that's showing right now across the street that even though the FLUM shows those as multifamily units, they're all condos that have been put on those properties. And so I'm just wondering why why you don't sort of follow that route, since you could put 4 units on this property without any change to the FLUM or the zoning or anything else. Thank you.
Okay. Rodney, would you like to respond to Bill's question?
Yes, sir. Mr. Spiesman, thank you for the question. If I got it correctly, why are we not doing a duplex development as opposed to multifamily? We are aware that there's the duplexes across the street, and there's ability to do that. However, the lot is not as wide. If we were to be granted the MF3, we could get more units on there. We feel that's a better land use being sandwiched between the two multifamily zonings.
Does anyone else have any questions for the applicant's agent? So this is Barbara MacArthur has her hand up. Would you unmute and ask your question, please?
Hey, I just had a quick question. I'm real curious about you saying that these would be 2 to 4 bedroom units, 12 2 to 4 bedroom units. Like, about how much square footage is that? I mean,
Thank you for your question, Ms. MacArthur. At this time, I don't have a square footage for you because this is the first stage in the development cycle or the hierarchy. But if I were to estimate a 2-bedroom would probably be 600 square feet, and a 4-bedroom maybe 1,200 square feet.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yes, ma'am. It's just right at this point in time, it's just a guess. If I were to say a 2-bedroom unit would probably be 600 square feet, and a 4-bedroom unit would be about 1,200 square feet. And I'm giving you those numbers based on my previous experience with apartment complexes and condos.
Okay, we have another question from Don Leighton-Burwell. Don, would you unmute and ask your question, please?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, Rodney, how are you? So the question that I have is, have you guys approached Dart Bowl, who owns the lot next door, about doing something more unified with the development instead of on a sort of piecemeal basis, since there doesn't seem to be a plan or anything yet that you guys could share with us tonight. So I'm just wondering if you guys had approached them about maybe doing this in a more integrated fashion. That's all.
Thank you for the question, Don. Good hearing from you. There was some communication with the folks from Dart Bowl. I'm not sure as to how that has progressed. I see where you're coming at with that because it's all going to tie together. I will be more than happy to offer that to my client to see if he can reach out to those folks.
Okay, we have Bill Spiesman. If you have your hand up, would you unmute and ask your question, please?
Yeah, one question, how high how many floors do you propose this development to be? You mentioned that the parking would be underneath, and then apartments above that. So how many floors, and what are you limited to with the new proposed zoning? What height are you limited to with the new proposed zoning?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Spiesman. It would essentially be 3 floors. The first floor would be parking. Then you'd have 2 livable floors above that. On average, a floor is 10 to 12 feet in height. So 30 feet, 35 feet.
Okay. Don, do you have another question, or is that an old hand?
That's the old hand.
Oh, then I'll lower your hand. So, did anybody else have any questions for Rodney? While we're waiting for that, Maureen, you want to put up a slide to see what the next parts of this process would be?
Yeah, I'll move up to staff contact. People can write it down. So after this meeting, the planners will meet and we'll make a recommendation on the plan amendment request. Then the zoning planners will make a recommendation on the zoning request. Then we'll start scheduling it for planning commission and city council. Of course, we will reach out to the Brentwood planning contact team and work with them on their letter of recommendation. At this time, the cases have not been scheduled for planning commission and city council. So we can keep everyone posted. If you want to send us your comments to be added to the staff case reports, please do that sooner rather than later so we can make sure when the cases are scheduled, we have all the comments compiled and we can add them to the case reports.
So does anybody else have any questions? Well, we have this opportunity to speak with the applicant's representative. Okay. Bill, if you could unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, I have a question that's not for the applicant, but sort of about the process. And I want to be able to ask the question, but I'm not sure if I should ask here or if there's a time later to ask that question.
Well, we're here, so why don't we just ask it and see where it goes?
Okay. My question is that, if you go back, if you recall, or you can move back to the zoning map, that there are numerous properties across the street that are the FLUM map shows as being multifamily, but this zoning map shows that that's not the use. In fact, there's a lot of relatively new properties across the street there that are all single family use. And I'm wondering why the FLUM map hasn't been updated to reflect that. Many of those, I'm not sure about all of them, but many of them are owner occupied. They're not rentals. They're not old houses hanging around waiting for opportunity to develop. They're simply single family properties. And I'm wondering why the process, hasn't, why there hasn't been some sort of a process to correct the FLUM map, because that kind of misrepresents to some extent the nature of the property that we're talking about, in that the FLUM map, it looks like it's a lone island out there, whereas these properties, although across the street, represent a significant portion of the area around that property that are misclassified, I would say, by the FLUM map relative to their current and expected future use.
Maureen, I can answer that if you'd like.
Sure.
Well, I wasn't involved with the community when this plan was created, but a FLUM map is not a zoning map. It is when it's created, it's an aspirational map that says in this location, in these locations, we desire this or that future land use. And since I wasn't involved, I can only, look at the FLUM map and see that part of that discussion could have been that in the future, the properties on Roosevelt would someday convert to multifamily. And so that's why they weren't, and then they possibly weren't rezoned as part of the process, the planning process. That's speculation on my part, but that's what I see on what the map is kind of telling me. Rodney, you have a comment or a statement, a question?
Yes. Thank you. I just heard from the owner. He thinks that 6 units rather than 12 would be all that he's allowed to build on there. Hang on one second. No, he said he would have chimed in, but he didn't register in time. So I put 12 on the application just because I needed a number, and 12 is a good starting point. But we're more than welcome, or more than happy to lower that, those units. But I don't want to cut my foot off to spite my face and say, well, we think we're only going to get 6 when in reality we could get 8. So that's why I put 12.
Just to step back in here with regard to the FLUM mapping, and I'm sure that historically that area of the map was, you know, if there would, I don't know what the properties looked like at the time that the map was built, but now that the properties have been, those single family properties have been established, I'm wondering if there's some process where the FLUM map could be moved, could be changed so that those properties are actually properly represented. Since there probably is not, you know, a likelihood that they're all going to suddenly turn into multifamily apartment buildings. You know, I know that there's a swimming pool permit, you know, on one of those. So somebody just put in a swimming pool, and I'm guessing they don't want to fill it in and put an apartment building on that. And so that was the process question that I had. Is I understand historically how it could have ended up that way, but is there a process by which it can be corrected so that it more accurately represents what the future of those properties are likely to be? Thanks.
Maureen, you want to tackle that one?
No, I'll let you do that.
Well, there is an amendment process, just like we're going through discussing tonight. So a contact team could, and I don't know the particulars because I don't do a lot of plan amendments, but a contact team, I guess, could initiate a plan amendment. I don't know what the limits are in regards to properties, Maureen. Do you, off the top of your head? Because I don't know if one's really ever been done. So I just don't know.
Yeah, so the plan amendment applications that planning contact teams have submitted so far have only been amendments to the text of a plan, and they're limited to one element of the plan document, so they can't update all the text, but maybe a specific section. No planning contact team thus far has submitted an amendment to the future land use map. I don't know of any reason why they couldn't, but I suppose if the Brentwood Planning Contact Team wanted to pursue this or something similar, they could contact us and we could go more specifically over their request and see how it would work within the context of the plan amendment area-wide plan amendment applications that we've got in the past.
So, okay. Don, would you like to unmute and ask your question, please?
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say, was what Maureen had mentioned, was that when the plan was done originally, we did have on the FLUM that was multifamily, but that was driven more by speculation of how that would develop. Since it ended up developing a single family, then I think that the planning contact team has an obligation to submit an amendment to the FLUM to get the FLUM in sync with what are essentially new housing, single family housing there, so that people aren't looking at that wondering why it doesn't jive. So I think that the planning contact team has an obligation to submit a plan amendment.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Not, we don't have, the meeting doesn't have to last until 7:30 if nobody else has any questions. Hey, Rodney, we'll lower your unmute and
Thank you. Once again, just so I can recap, we have no problems with lowering the conditional overlay from 12 to a smaller number. We feel that this MF zoning is appropriate for the neighborhood, especially considering the apartments to the south and what is zoned MF to the north of us, which will tie into the Dart Bowl project coming around. If anybody has any thoughts on the number of units we're proposing for this lot, I'd love to hear about it. If y'all want to reach out to me after the meeting, my contact information is with the application, or Maureen can give it to you. Thank you. Appreciate y'all's time.
Someone by the name of Slorp, of you on SLORP, would you unmute your microphone?
I am so sorry. We joined very late. We had to feed the kids, so apologies for the late question. Sorry, what is being proposed at this? Are they duplexes? Is it a small apartment building? I just actually couldn't tell from the information actually what was being proposed on the land.
Okay. Rodney, want to unmute?
Yes, thank you. So we are proposing to change the zoning from SF3 NP, which allows for duplex use, to MF3, which allows for multifamily. The owner is proposing to construct a 3-story building with, let me go back to my notes. A 3-story building with parking under the 2 living areas above it. The number of bedrooms would be between 2 and 4. We estimate the square footage of each unit to be between 600 to 1,200. The building height should be around 30 feet. We don't have specific information to give at this time because of the process at the city is to get the zoning before we can submit site plan information. In my packet, I requested a conditional overlay limiting the number of units to 12. We are happy to lower that number. I don't want to get it too low as to cut our foot off to spite our face. We feel that our request is in guidelines with the neighborhood as it is right now, because we have a multifamily to the south of us and a proposed multifamily to the north of us. And then if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Thank you.
Okay. Travis Young, you have your hand raised. Would you unmute and ask your question, please?
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm sorry, I'm actually in the Landmark Commission meeting as well tonight, which is exactly the same time for which I'm an applicant. My name is Travis Young. I'm the chair of the contact team. I was wondering if staff could just outline the next steps, since having this public meeting is the first step. And I would assume that there would be some request from the contact team in terms of support, and or if there was conditions to that support, what that would be. But I'd also like to know what are the next steps that we can be prepared for in terms of the timeline for this change.
Want me to do that,
Okay.
Maureen, or you got it?
I'll do it. So the cases have not been scheduled for planning commission or city council yet. So the next steps would be staff would meet and we would make a recommendation. Then we would work with the planning contact team on getting their recommendation. Then we would start looking at scheduling it for planning commission and city council.
So there's a possibility of additional meetings with contact team, and let's say for example, if we had a proposal in front of us with an actual building that is something that could potentially be approved by under the proposed zoning, that we could make commentary on that and or propose certain conditions that we felt were necessary to help the neighborhood's context and scale and scope, etc., without cutting off anyone's nose despite their face.
You can certainly reach out to Rodney and make arrangements with him and his and the property owner on any such meetings that y'all want to work with them, and keep us informed on how those meetings go. If y'all need any input from staff on, these zoning regulations or whatnot. And then y'all can just keep us posted to what point, I guess the meetings are ended and we're ready to move forward to Planning Commission and City Council.
One last question, Maureen, thank you. If no meetings happen and there's no further discussion with the contact team and the applicant moves forward with staff, what would be the soonest this would go before Planning Commission?
It kind of depends on the zoning planners. They have a little bit they have a more thorough review process than the plan amendment because they have to hear from transportation and so forth and so on. But just looking at the calendar, I would just guess the soonest probably April 27th. I don't think we could meet April 13th, but if it was breakneck speed, I would say April 27th.
Thank you.
And then the next meeting would be the second Tuesday of May.
Yeah, so then after that, yeah, it would be May 11th. And then the one after that is May 25th. What usually happens is I usually wait to hear from the zoning planners when they've met with their team, and sometimes that can get delayed if they have a lot of cases to discuss at the particular team meetings, and so sometimes that's what happens with the zoning recommendation. So it's hard for me to sort of guesstimate when it might be ready, but we can certainly keep you informed, or rather, it'd be great if y'all reached out to us, because sometimes with a lot of cases we may not remember certain, to reach out to people when we're dealing with a lot of cases. So please feel free to email either me or Mark Graham to just check in to see if we have any prospective dates, so we can keep y'all informed.
Okay. Barbara MacArthur has her hand raised. If you could unmute and ask your question, please.
Hey, I would just really like to get the contact information for the developer's agent and the developer so that we could hopefully meet with them about this project. I think that the Brentwood neighborhood would really like to do that. I know another person came to our meeting, but I believe it's not the same owner. Someone had a plan to build 8 little houses on the property, but I think this property has changed hands twice in the last 2 years. So it'd be really good for us to get that contact info so we can talk about this.
Okay, well, Rodney, you want to unmute and respond?
Yes, Ms. MacArthur. I did in the chat box put my contact information there. And I'm available pretty much whenever you need me.
And Mr. Bennett, this is Travis Young. I just sent you an email contact. I have it. I'll share that email as well if anyone else can't see it in the chat. And just a contact email, and we'll have a discussion amongst the contact team and be in touch soon to establish some more more discussion.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Young. I do appreciate that. Love to spend some time with y'all.
Okay. Are there any other questions remaining out there? If not, we can wrap up a little early and get along with our evenings. So one last time, do you want to throw your contact information up there, Maureen, and we can
Okay, sorry, just
It's fine.
closed out, but let me pull that up again.
So you have Mark's and Maureen's contact information here, and as Maureen said, this meeting is being recorded and it will be posted on the Speak Up Austin page within by the end of the week, probably much sooner than that. So anybody who missed it has an opportunity to listen and watch. So without any further questions, I think we can call the meeting. I think Maureen, you normally stick around for a few minutes while people enter their any comments into the
Sure.
into the chat.
Yes. I can do that.
Okay, so if anyone wants to leave any comments based on what we heard this evening, we really encourage that because, you know, just more information, and this information will be put into the staff report. Is that correct, Maureen?
Yes.
So all the any comments or questions or any comments will be recorded and forwarded to the Planning Commission and City Council in their staff backups. So with that, I'm going to thank you all for coming out, turning on your computers and joining us tonight. And with that, have a good evening. Right now, so I'm going to stop recording.
Thanks.